January 1979. Britain wakes to frosted windscreens and picket lines. Tanker drivers' strikes shut petrol stations as the winter of discontent bites. And on 22nd of January, over 1 million public sector workers walk out over pay on the day of action. Bins pile up, services stall, and on the radio, "Hit Me With Your Rhythm Stick" knocks YMCA off the top of the charts. In the wider world, January sees the United States and China establish full diplomatic relations. Vietnamese forces roll into Phnom Penh and topple the Khmer Rouge regime. And the Bee Gees share a New York stage for the Music for UNICEF concert. Back in Europe, factories keep the lines crawling through the cold. Some are clinging to long-serving workhorses. Others are quietly betting on small, efficient hatchbacks to carry families into an uncertain new decade. Some say these were the cars that proved modest machines could carry whole lives on their shoulders. A tiny Japanese upstart, a tough Yugoslav hatch, and a French saloon that refused to retire. All we know is they're the Daihatsu Charade runabout, the Zastava 101, and the Peugeot 404. This is Four Wheels and Fuel, Season 3, Episode 1.
走ったわね。でもまだこんなにガソリンがあるわ。だってリッター19キロだもん。
1000モードリッター19キロ燃費のシャレード、今注目。
シャレード。Yes, Charade.
ダイハツです。
Daihatsu Charade runabout. In early 1979, the Daihatsu Charade was still the new boy on European streets. A tiny hatchback from a Japanese maker most neighbors had barely heard of. Where Britain was used to fiestas, the Charade arrived as the outsider, a sharply folded little box that promised proper hatchback usefulness in the space most people reserved for a motorbike and a dustbin. The three-door runabout, introduced only a few months earlier, was Daihatsu's step from domestic tiddlers into the serious super mini class, designed to be exported rather than just squeeze around Tokyo backstreets. Pop the bonnet and the cleverness becomes obvious. Instead of a bulky four-cylinder, there is a compact 1-litre three-cylinder sitting low and close to the bulkhead with clear air around it. Radiator, belts, distributor, and carburetor sit where you can actually see and reach them. On paper, it makes only around 50 brake horsepower through a 4-speed manual to the front wheels. But the Charade is so light that every one of those horses counts. Inside, the Charade feels like someone took a ruler to every surface. The dashboard is a simple slab with a square-set instrument pod, heater sliders, and a few honest switches. Thin, upright seats free up legroom, and the tall glass area keeps the cabin bright, even on a grey morning. The long gear lever sprouts from the floor, close to the thin-rim steering wheel. From the pavement, the three-door runabout looks compact but surprisingly serious. A short upright nose carries a narrow grille and round headlamps, while along the sides the glasshouse is framed by slim pillars and generous side windows. The party trick sits in the C-pillars, 2 small round opera windows that give the little Daihatsu a hint of mini coupe. Wheels pushed towards each corner make it sit more planted than its size suggests. Out on the road, it feels exactly as light as it looks. The steering is easy at town speeds. The little 3-cylinder hums away busily, And progress is all about keeping your momentum rather than chasing numbers. Driven smoothly, it rewards you with a sense of effortlessness that bigger cars rarely manage in tight suburbs. For many families, that was the trick. The Charade did not try to be glamorous or important. It simply turned cold late 70s miles into something manageable and quietly memorable.
Lepotin popolnosti se ne morete upreti.
Zastava 101. In a corner of Europe where winters are long and roads are never quite smooth, the Zastava 101 had already spent years just getting on with the job. Built in Yugoslavia on Fiat 128 underpinnings, but with its own hatchback body, it was the car you saw outside apartment blocks, cement works, and small corner shops. Where many West European families still drove small saloons with a separate boot, workers and teachers here had a proper tailgate long before the idea became fashionable. And they got it without paying Italian money. Pop the bonnet and the Fiat connection is obvious. The transverse four-cylinder sits slightly canted over, with the can cover, plug leads and carburetor lined up towards the grille. It is a simple overhead cam unit of around 1.1 to 1.3 litres, good for roughly 60 brake horsepower, through a 4-speed gearbox to the front wheels. There is nothing flashy to see, plain cooling hoses, easily reached plugs, and a layout that any village mechanic from Skopje to Split could understand. Inside, the 101 feels honest and a little severe. The dashboard is a straight plank with an instrument pod ahead of the driver and a few rotary knobs and sliders in the middle. Seats are broad but flat, trimmed in vinyl or simple cloth that has to put up with work overalls, muddy boots and overflowing shopping bags. The steering wheel is large and thin. The gear lever rises in a long, slightly springy arc from the floor. And in the back, there is just enough room for a small family, plus their coats and market bags. Nobody expects luxury. The whole cabin is set up to be wiped down and used again tomorrow. From the pavement, the 101 looks tougher than its Italian cousin. The nose is short and blunt, with round headlamps and a plain grille. The sides are almost ruler straight. Later that year, it would gain square headlights with the arrival of the Zastava 101S and 101SC. The roof runs into a practical hatch with a wide opening framed by small square tail lamps. The wheels sit fairly far inboard, giving it a slightly high-waisted stance that suits beaten tarmac and rough lanes. There is nothing flashy here. The panels look as if they were drawn to be stamped thick and endure years of knocks, scrapes and overloading. Out on the road it behaves exactly like that description suggests. The steering is a touch heavy when you are parking, but settles into a steady weight as soon as you are rolling. And the soft suspension swallows potholes, patched surfaces and gravelly shortcuts without complaint. It leans politely in bends, yet stays predictable, the engine pulling steadily through the middle of the rev range, rather than rushing you anywhere. Nobody bought a 101 for excitement. They bought it because it would carry cement bags, holiday luggage, or 3 generations of family without drama. And that is what sticks in the memory.
Why has Peugeot won so many rallies? It's Peugeot perfection paying off. The perfection that makes the Peugeot 404 one of the 7 best-made cars in the world. The perfection that gives you the smooth hush of the 404 automatic sedan. That lets you drive relaxed in the busiest city traffic. The perfection that gives you Peugeot dependability, family space and family comfort in the 404 station wagon. Peugeot 404, motoring perfection in automatic sedan, manual station wagon.
Peugeot 404. The Peugeot 404 began life in 1960. Crisp and confident, a Pininfarina saloon that brought Italian poise to French common sense. Through the 60s, it won rallies, hauled families, and quietly taught Europe that comfort didn't have to be fussy. Year by year, it matured. Grills grew bolder, seats softer, heaters better, until the late run-out cars felt like the distilled idea of a long-legged family saloon. The final era 404, the 1975 saloon that saw out production in France and kept on earning a living far beyond it. Lift the bonnet and you see why mechanics liked the late cars. A square, serviceable inline 4. Radiator, fan, belts up front, fuel system within easy reach. Carb or simple injection by market, but the layout invites quick valve checks and fresh points, not drama. Taxi firms loved that predictability. So did families who wanted a car that would do summers to Spain and winters to the in-laws without complaint. Inside, the evolution is in the calm. Broader, more supportive seats than the early cars. More padding on the dash. Clearer ventilation that actually demists a cold screen before your fingers go numb. The view out remains classic 404. Slim pillars, generous glass, airy and unhurried. Stand back and you can see how the skin barely aged. The last series grille keeps the horizontal theme clean and assertive. The flanks are smooth, with that gentle kick over the rear arch that catches evening light. Bumpers sit purposeful, without looking heavy. Even a tired example wears itself well, like a good suit that's been brushed, repaired, and worn again, because it still fits better than anything new. On the road, the late 404 moves with the same long stride that made its name. The engine builds effort gradually, asking you to drive smoothly rather than rush. It's not about speed, it's about arriving rested, with the kids asleep and the boot full. Which is why, in January 1979, you still saw these 1975 saloons at taxi ranks and station forecourts. The decade had moved on, but the 404's job wasn't finished. The Daihatsu Charade showed how a tiny Japanese hatchback could quietly rescue a battered household budget. The Zastava 101 just kept hauling people, shopping and everything else through winters that would have broken flimsier cars. The Peugeot 404 carried families, luggage and life's big moments with a calm, unhurried stride. What's your memory of cars like these on your street or in your family? Tell us in the comments. Give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next trip. You can also support us via Buy Me a Coffee, link in the description. Next time we stay in January 1979 for a Dutch-built Swede, a tiny British legend and a sharp-edged newcomer from behind the Iron Curtain. Until then, keep the heater on and the memories turning.